The men of Bannock's End called her the Mute. But when Elodie Kincaid saw the three-line mark carved into the saloon post that morning, fresh, still bleeding sap, she knew the war chief was already here, and no one in this town would survive the week. She'd said nothing for 2 years, not when they laughed, not when they spat, not when Mayor Boggs called her husband a fool for marrying a broken woman. But silence wasn't weakness. It was a choice, and now, as she traced her fingers over the mark, 3 lines and a bird, the signature of Ironwind himself, Elodie realized the time for silence was ending. Because the warlord coming to destroy Bannock's End, she'd known him since she was 7 years old. He'd called her Little Sparrow, and he was coming for blood. The wagon rolled into town under August sun, dust rising behind the wheels. Silas Kincaid held the reins while Elodie sat beside him, dark hair braided tight, eyes scanning the street like she was reading a language no one else could see. The saloon erupted in laughter. Mayor Eustace Boggs stepped onto the porch, belly testing his vest buttons, smile full of teeth and meanness. "Well, well, if it ain't Silas and his quiet bride," Boggs called out. "Tell me, Kincaid, does she at least nod when you ask her to pass the salt? Or do you just guess what she wants?" The men howled. Someone made a fishmouth gesture, opening and closing silently. Silas's jaw went tight, hand drifting toward the Colt at his hip. But Elodie's fingers found his wrist, gentle, deliberate, and the anger drained from him. He'd learned to trust that touch. It had stopped him from making fatal mistakes before. "Reckon a quiet woman's a blessing, Boggs," Silas said evenly. "At least mine doesn't spend all day complaining like Martha does to you." A few men chuckled. Boggs's smile turned hard. "Watch yourself, Kincaid." The wagon moved on, but as they passed the saloon, Elodie's eyes locked on something that made her spine straighten. There, carved into the corner post, 3 parallel lines intersecting with a crude bird shape. The wood was pale, freshly cut. Her hand tightened on the wagon seat. That mark hadn't been there yesterday. Silas noticed. "What is it?" She didn't answer. She never did. But when her gaze shifted west to the ridgeline, Silas followed it and saw 3 thin columns of smoke rising in deliberate pulses against the sky. Most folks wouldn't notice. Most wouldn't understand. But Elodie went pale as creekstone, and Silas felt ice crawl down his spine. Because in 2 years of marriage, he'd never seen fear in his wife's eyes. Until now. If you're hooked already, hit that like button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. This story gets wild, and I need to know if you can handle what's coming next. That night, Silas found Elodie in their cabin doing something that stopped him cold. She'd pulled up the floorboards near the hearth, boards he didn't know were loose, and retrieved a leather bundle wrapped in oilcloth. Inside, a doeskin dress decorated with beadwork, a bone-handled knife, and a small pouch of red paint. She wasn't panicking. She was preparing. "Elodie?" he said carefully. "What's happening?" She ignored him, moving with ritual precision. She stripped off her cotton dress and pulled on the doeskin. Then she opened the paint pouch and began marking her face. Ash-gray lines across her cheekbones, a single red stripe down her forehead. Silas had seen war paint before. This was exactly that. "Elodie, talk to me, please." Her eyes met his, and for the first time since he'd found her by that burned-out army wagon 2 years ago, he saw not the broken woman everyone thought she was, but someone else entirely. Someone who'd worn this paint before. Someone who knew what was coming. She touched his face gently, then went back to her preparations. Silas loaded his rifles in silence, hands shaking, because he was starting to understand that he'd married a woman whose story was far deeper and darker than he ever imagined. The horse came at dawn. It galloped into town like something chased by demons, riderless, reins trailing, saddle black with dried blood. The animal collapsed near the water trough, flanks heaving, eyes rolling white. Tom Pritchard found the rider's body 3 miles out. When he galloped back into town an hour later, he was shaking so hard he fell off his horse before he could dismount. "Red Creek Hollow," he gasped, hands trembling. "Gone! Every man, woman, and child! Butchered!" The words hit Bannock's End like a physical blow. "Who?" Mayor Boggs demanded. Pritchard's voice dropped to a whisper. "Iron Wind." Silence, the kind that comes before storms. Chief Ironwind, Tate Maza, was a name that made cavalry officers reach for whiskey and seasoned scouts refuse assignments. 5 years ago, the army had burned his village while the warriors were hunting. His wife, his daughters, his mother, all dead. Since that day, Ironwind had become something more than human in the minds of settlers. He was vengeance given flesh, and every settlement he touched vanished like smoke. No negotiations, no survivors, no mercy. "How long do we have?" someone asked. "His war party is a day out, maybe less." The town descended into chaos. Women screamed, men ran for weapons, children cried. Mayor Boggs tried to restore order, but his voice cracked with panic. "We fortify the church," he shouted. "Bring all guns and ammunition. We'll make our stand there." Silas grabbed Elodie's hand. "We need to leave, now. Head for the fort." She shook her head, firm and absolute. "Elodie, we can't fight them. No one survives Ironwind." She pulled her hand free and walked toward her cabin, not running, not afraid, moving with purpose like a soldier heading to a battlefield she'd already mapped in her mind. Silas followed, dread pooling in his gut. Drop a comment right now. Do you think they should run or stay? And don't forget to subscribe. This channel tells stories that'll keep you up at night. By nightfall, the entire town had crammed into the church. 43 souls pressed shoulder to shoulder, rifles pointing at windows, children huddled in the pews. Silas sat near the back with Elodie. She'd insisted on wearing the doe-skin dress beneath her shawl, and the paint still marked her face, though she'd tried to hide it. Mayor Boggs paced near the altar, sweating through his shirt. "We just need to hold until morning. The fort will send help." "The fort doesn't know we're in trouble," someone interrupted. "Telegraph's been cut since yesterday." "Then we hold anyway. We've got numbers, we've got walls." The first arrow came through the window like a comet. It buried itself in a pew, shaft wrapped in burning cloth. Within seconds, 3 more followed, then a dozen, then too many to count. Flaming arrows arc through the darkness, thudding into the roof, shattering glass, turning night into hellish daylight. War cries erupted from every direction, high, ululating screams that didn't sound human. The church walls shook. Someone fired a rifle blindly into the dark. A woman started praying in hysterical gasps. "Hold your fire," Boggs screamed. "Don't waste ammunition." But discipline was already gone. The town was drowning in terror, and fear makes people into animals. Tom Pritchard wheeled on Elodie, eyes wild. "This is her fault. Everything went to hell after Kincaid brought her here." "She's cursed," another voice added. "A bad omen." The crowd's panic found a target. Hands reached for Elodie. Rough, desperate, ugly. "Throw her out. Give her to them. Maybe they'll leave us alone." Silas moved faster than thought. His Colt came up, hammer cocked, barrel inches from Tom Pritchard's forehead. "Touch her and I'll paint this church with your brains," Silas said, voice colder than January wind. "I got 6 bullets. That's 6 dead men. Who wants to be first?" The church went dead silent, except for crackling flames and distant drums. Mayor Boggs raised shaking hands. "Silas, we're all scared." "Then be scared quiet," Silas snapped. "My wife hasn't done a damn thing to any of you except exist, and you want to murder her to save your own hides. You people make me sick." A child whimpered. A woman sobbed. Outside, the war drums thundered closer, synchronized with heartbeats, shaking the ground. Then the front doors exploded inward, not broken by axes, demolished by the sheer force of a war horse's shoulder. Splinters flew like shrapnel, women screamed, men raised rifles with hands that shook too badly to aim. And through the smoke and chaos, Iron Wind rode into the house of God. He was massive, shoulders like an ox yoke, chest bare except for a necklace of bear claws and what might have been human finger bones. His face was painted in jagged black and red slashes that made him look like a demon crawled up from hell. Eagle feathers hung in his long hair, and in his right hand he carried a war lance still wet with blood. His eyes swept the cowering crowd with contempt, like a wolf watching rabbits. Behind him, 20 warriors filled the doorway, bows drawn, blades ready, faces painted for death. Iron Wind spoke, harsh, guttural Dakota that rolled through the church like thunder. No one understood the words, but the meaning was clear in every syllable. "Your time is over." He raised his lance, pointing it at Mayor Boggs.
The mayor collapsed to his knees, sobbing. The war chief began to speak again, what sounded like a judgment, a sentence, when movement cut him off. Elodie stood. She pushed Silas's gun down gently but firmly, then stepped into the center aisle. The shawl slipped from her shoulders, revealing the doe-skin dress, the paint, the bone knife at her hip. "Elodie, no!" Silas lunged for her. She didn't look back. She walked toward Iron Wind with her head high, hands visible, moving through the terrified crowd like she was walking through tall grass. The townspeople watched in frozen horror as their silent bride walked to her execution. Iron Wind's expression twisted with rage. His lance came down, tip aimed at her heart, muscles coiling to drive it through her chest. Elodie spoke. The words that came from her mouth were fluid and sharp, rising and falling with absolute authority. Lakota, spoken like someone who'd learned it before English, who'd dreamed in it, who'd sung childhood songs in it. Her voice rang through the church like a bell, clear and commanding and utterly fearless. Iron Wind froze. The lance stopped 6 inches from her chest. She kept speaking now, faster, gesturing with one hand toward the cowering townspeople, then placing her palm over her heart. The cadence was formal, ritual, the kind of speech that carries weight. The war chief's face cycled through emotions too fast to track, rage to confusion to shock to something that looked almost like grief. Slowly, so slowly it seemed impossible, he lowered the lance. When he spoke again, his voice had changed completely. Not the thunder of a warlord, but the rough softness of a man speaking to someone he'd lost and found again. He said something that sounded like a question, almost pleading. Elodie reached up and pulled her collar aside, revealing a mark on her shoulder, a circular scar, deliberate and ceremonial, that could only have been made with hot metal in a ritual context. A young warrior in the back gasped. His bow clattered to the floor. Iron Wind stared at the mark for a long moment, then at Elodie's face, really looking at her now, seeing past the pale skin and the white woman's features to something underneath. He spoke again, this time just 2 words. Elodie nodded once. And, impossibly, Chief Iron Wind, the man who'd destroyed 6 settlements, who'd slaughtered cavalry units, who'd sworn vengeance against every white face on the frontier, lowered his head in respect. If your jaw just hit the floor, smash that like button and subscribe because you need to see how this ends. Comment below, did you see this twist coming? What do you think she said to him? The exchange lasted another minute. Iron Wind speaking in low, urgent tones, Elodie responding with the calm authority of someone who'd done this before. At one point, he reached toward her face and the crowd gasped, but he was only touching a strand of her hair gently, the way a father might touch a daughter.
Then Elodie shook her head, firm, final. Iron Wind's expression hardened, then softened into resignation. He spoke one last phrase, a goodbye that sounded like it was tearing something inside him, and Elodie responded with words that made several warriors lower their weapons entirely. The war chief turned to his men and barked a command. They hesitated, these men who'd followed him into hell itself, but when he repeated it, they obeyed. One by one, they withdrew, backing out of the church, lowering their weapons, vanishing into the darkness like ghosts. Iron Wind himself remained a moment longer. He looked at the townspeople with naked disgust, then back at Elodie with something closer to love. He spoke once more, soft, almost tender. She touched her heart, then gestured toward him in what was clearly a formal goodbye. Then he wheeled his horse and rode into the night. Within minutes, the war drums stopped. The fires burned themselves out. The siege that should have ended in massacre ended instead in silence. The church remained frozen. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. Mayor Boggs found his voice first, weak and trembling. What just happened? Elodie turned to face the crowd. Every person who'd mocked her, threatened her, tried to throw her to the wolves now stared at the woman who'd saved their worthless lives. When she spoke, her voice was rough from years of disuse, but steady as bedrock, and she spoke English for the first time in 2 years. He asked me why I lived among people who treat me like this. The crowd flinched like she'd slapped them. What did you tell him? Boggs whispered. I told him he weren't worth his warrior's blood. I told him I'd paid any debt between our families by suffering you this long. Her eyes swept the crowd, and grown men looked away. I asked him to spare you as a gift to me. And he just listened? Tom Pritchard asked, voice small. He listened because his mother raised me after mine died, because I'm his sister in every way that matters, because in the language that counts on this frontier, I outrank every man in this territory. She paused. He called me Little Sparrow. He wanted me to come home. The church was silent, except for someone's quiet sobbing. "Why didn't you?" a woman asked. Elodie's eyes found Silas, the man who'd married her without understanding her, who'd defended her when no one else would, who'd never demanded she be anything other than what she was. She walked to him and took his hand. "Because I found something here worth staying for." Silas couldn't speak. He pulled her close and she let him, her head against his chest. Elodie looked back at the crowd one final time. "Ironwind is gone. But if I ever see that mark carved in town again, I won't stop him. I'll help him. We clear?" 43 heads nodded frantically. "Good." She tugged Silas toward the door. "Let's go home." They walked out together, past the smoldering remains of the town's arrogance, past the people who'd never see her the same way again. Behind them, Mayor Boggs finally found words. "Wait! How long were you? When did you?" Elodie paused at the threshold. She didn't turn around. "I was 7 when Pawnee raiders killed my family's wagon train. Ironwind's mother found me half dead and raised me as her own. I lived with them for 8 years. Then the army rescued me, which is a nice word for kidnapped. They put me in a mission school and beat me every time I spoke Lakota. They said they were saving me." Her voice went cold. "I haven't spoken English since the day they took me. Not until tonight. Not until it mattered." She walked into the dawn with Silas, leaving Bannock's end to drown in its shame. The town never mocked Silas Kincaid again. They never forgot the day the silent girl spoke the language of war to save people who hated her. And in the years that followed, when travelers asked about the quiet woman who lived on the edge of town, the answer was always the same. That's Elodie Kincaid. She don't talk much, but when she does, even the devil listens. 3 months later, on a cold morning, Silas woke to find Elodie standing at the window, staring west towards the mountains. For a moment, he wondered if she regretted staying. Then she turned to him and spoke, still sparingly, still carefully choosing when words mattered, but she spoke. "Coffee?" she asked. "Yeah, coffee sounds good." She never told him everything about her years with Ironwind's people. Some stories she said belonged to a different version of herself, but she told him enough. About learning to track deer in winter, about the songs Ironwind's mother taught her, about the day the army came with guns and fire. And sometimes, late at night, when Silas couldn't sleep, he'd find her on the porch, humming something low and haunting in a language he didn't understand. He never asked her to stop, because he'd finally learned what the town never did. Silence isn't emptiness. Sometimes it's the loudest thing in the room. So what did you think? Did this story blow your mind or what? Drop a like if you made it to the end, subscribe for more incredible stories like this, and comment below, what would you have done in Silas's position? Also, let me know where you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. You're amazing for sticking with me, and I'll see you in the next one.